Welcome, everybody. I'm Jen.
And I'm Dora, and we are two yogis talking about life.
So it's such a privilege. It's a full circle moment for Dora and I as we are able to introduce our teacher, Dr. Richard Miller. He's dedicated his life to helping people alleviate suffering and awaken to their essential nature of wholeness and indestructible well-being. Richard is the founder of iRest Institute, where Dora and I assist with training, retreats, and events. He's the co-founder of the International Association of Yoga Therapy and co-founding president of the Institute for Psychology and Spirituality. He's the author of Yoga Nidra, iRest meditative practice for deep relaxation and healing, and the iRest program for healing PTSD. Richard is regarded as a leader in the fields of meditation, yoga therapy, and mental health. He's a respected author, scholar, researcher, and speaker, and leads workshops, trainings, and retreats internationally. So we're so grateful for you to take the time to be on our podcast, Richard.
And me to join the two of you. How special.
So, we would love for you to share a little bit about what the inspiration was that brought you to yoga and the non-dual teachings of Yoga Nidra and how iRest came to be, and particularly what you're most excited about now.
Well, I always think it's a mystery that brings us to where we come to. For me, it was a most unexpected moment. I was new to San Francisco. I was wanting to meet some people. So unbeknownst to me, I signed up for a yoga class, having never taken one. But the class turned out to be taught in silence. So we entered the building in silence. We basically stayed silent except for the teacher, and we left the building in silence. So I have the joke that I didn't meet anyone except I met myself, because the end of the first evening's class in the meditation portion, the woman who was teaching taught what I now know was a rudimentary yoga nidra practice through the Satchidananda integral yoga perspective. And I had a most transformative moment. I walked in with a slight sense of loneliness, aloneness, a little bit of a depression, you might say. And I walked out feeling wonderfully alive. The sense of aloneness and alienation had just vanished. And I felt a sense of oneness with everything. And as I walked home, I wondered, number one, what just happened? What was the practice we did, and how can I find out more? Well, not too long afterwards, I was starting to volunteer at a clinic to learn the art of psychotherapy, and I'd go on later on to become a licensed psychologist and a licensed marriage and family therapist. But I met a woman who had just landed in the United States from the Far East. She'd grown up in a Buddhist community, taught yoga by her mom as a child, and she became my mentor. And through her, I began to launch myself into these precious teachings that I've grown up now for in the last 55, some odd 60 years. So it's been quite an adventure, actually, because along the way, I studied Mahayana Buddhism. I had a beautiful, long relationship with a Chinese man who taught me the Chinese approach of Taoist yoga and meditation. I took classes and sat retreats in Zen, but always coming back to yoga as my kind of foundational practice. And this practice of Yoga Nidra, which I started to really learn about in the early 70s after that class, kept on learning and then started to teach it when I was asked to teach it through a studio where I was learning yoga, and then started adapting it and making it more adapted to Westerners. And then lo and behold, after many years of teaching it in 2004, I was approached by the military at the Walter Reed Army Medical Center who inquired. They had heard of my protocol that I had developed, asked if I might be interested in doing research with returning active duty and veterans with severe PTSD. And the research was so successful, they immediately integrated my program into Walter Reed. Up till today, you can still get my program there if you're going through your healing regimen. And subsequently, lots of research studies. Now, what, 6,000 teachers later who've learned it around the world. We're in 25 countries, I'm told. Some 85 VA sites are integrating our teachings into their sites to help people with their post-traumatic stress and other issues that they're facing from being in military service. And I just delight in the mystery of how did I get here, in, growing up, not understanding any of these kinds of teachings and then finding myself landing in them, immersed in them, and they become my life's work. So it's been an adventure from day one, I would say.
And what might you say that you're most interested now, having gone through that whole journey of discovering the different teachings? Yeah, what are you finding that you're most passionate or inspired or interested now?
It's a great question. I feel like I've grown into and through the teachings and come out the other side where I find I'm just an ordinary, at ease human being, comfortable with my body, my emotions, comfortable with life, meeting it on its own terms. One of my teachers, I thought, said it perfectly when he was asked what was his secret, Jiddu Krishnamurti, and he said, I don't mind what happens. And I find now I love being with people who want to come to that same quality of understanding. And so, really, I love teaching retreats most of all, but also continuing to teach in the iRest format that has been created. But I love the retreat aspect because here's where people come who we might say are seriously interested and really do want to grow and learn. And the other thing I've discovered is while awakening and enlightenment do have moments, it's lifelong learning. It's a continuing, ongoing adventure. And I can't imagine it ever ceasing the learning. So, um, they'll put me in my grave learning.
It's interesting how you say, about retreats and people coming to you. And with everything that's happening in the world right now, we're finding that people are coming to our sessions with big emotions. And of course, they're going through a process. So without telling them what's right or wrong or what's immoral, how can we best support our students or even our loved ones as they process maybe what's challenging and what's unfolding in life right now?
Jen and Dora, I think the hardest thing for people to learn, it was long years for me to really learn it, which is to stop trying to fix and change ourselves and really come into radical self-acceptance. I think until then, we're caught in a mirage and a flood of self-judgments or ways we think we should be other than as we are. I think as we really settle into deep self-acceptance, we're really finally willing to meet life on its own terms. And what I've discovered, which has given me great solace over the decades, is I'm convinced we each have within us the ability, one, to meet the moment And we have, we might say, harmonious responses built into us to meet each moment where we feel it's in keeping and harmony with ourselves and the situation. So this understanding of meeting life on its own terms doesn't mean we collapse. It means we meet it and we engage it fully. That means meeting our emotions, our thoughts, our sensations, and trusting that if we're really willing to listen within, we will find the right response to each moment that feels deeply harmonious within ourselves. But I do like to say that not always is comfortable. So I realize life isn't really about being comfortable. My preference is obviously not to be in pain, not to have emotional distress, but I've come to accept that life has its challenging moments. And what life has asked me at times is to change the direction I've been going in radically, which can be upsetting, challenging to say the least. But as I've met the challenge, it always has turned out, I would say, the best. So, the simple, meet life as it is on its terms, but look within for the most harmonious response. So we step out of then reacting. I love this understanding when we have a situation. If we are trying to make life other than it is, we'll start to get caught into a reaction. And in that gap between the situation and the reaction, there is a response in there. When we really find it, we really do feel like we're on target, you might say, hitting accurately with each movement of our life. I hope
Yeah, I
that makes
think,
sense.
yeah, yes, it does. Absolutely. And I think that, um, this is why iRest is such a beautiful practice. And it's something that I'm passionate about bringing to my community. And I think that it's also interesting as a teacher, to also note my own kind of reactions and feelings and sensations as I'm meeting with these students who are coming in with big emotions, and noticing how I'm wanting to fix and change and help them come out of their suffering, and that at times I have to just stop myself and remember, your words, trust the process, right? We're here to support them, to hold space, but also that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to do anything to change their experience either. And so yeah, it's really interesting.
Can I
Well,
just
I
add
love this
also? Oh, go ahead.
metaphor that we're each a sacred mirror to each other. We're helping the others see themselves at their deepest, and they're helping us see ourselves at our deepest. Obviously, like you're saying, we have our preferences, the way we like things to be, but I have to bracket that and set it off to the side and see what is that life wants. And I think that's a secret for me. I've stopped asking, what do I want? I'm asking, what does life want of me so I can be fully aligned with that? And you were going to say something, Jen?
Oh, I was just connecting to what Dora was saying, just because I work with students mostly, right? Especially with little children. And I'm finding, 'cause some of them have really big emotions throughout the day, right? And I'm finding as long as I'm self-regulated, like when people ask me as a teacher, like, what do you do with the kids? Like, what do you teach them? And I'm finding more and more, it's not as much to do with the kids, it's much to do with us as we hold space for them. And when I'm more self-regulated, and then I can, offer, maybe holding their hand if that feels right, or if they want a Kleenex or not a Kleenex, and just like letting them maybe sit beside me, but just offering and giving them invitations in a self-regulated way, even though they're having these huge emotions. I find it's making a huge difference. It's not to do with me teaching them any iRest principles or just being a self-regulated, caring human. Yeah.
Yeah, it's being a good, kind, compassionate, loving human being, knowing when to set a healthy boundary. We always have to be able to and willing to set healthy boundaries. And following up on what you were just saying, I love working with children because they're so pliable. They have an emotion. If we let them have the emotion, they move right through it, right into the next moment. They don't hold on to it. They don't, you know, hold it on like adults do. They're so wonderful in their pliability and their plasticity to just move through the moment when they're allowed and enabled to.
So we're wondering also that, oftentimes we talk about how we can integrate the iRest practices and maybe take micro practices and how to integrate that into everyday life. Um, what are some ways that you notice that you integrate these practices in your life as you maybe take on different roles, like between maybe um, family or friends or as a father or a husband or a sibling? Like how do you find that your the iRest is being interwoven in your everyday life experiences?
I, the metaphor, I think, is we're wearing different hats all day long. I put on my father hat, take off the father hat, put on my teacher hat, take off the teacher hat, put on my husband hat, take that one off. It's that ability to move smoothly and not get caught in any particular image or role. I think that's one thing I keep in mind. I can tap into my breath all day long so that I'm keeping basically in touch with a rhythmic, diaphragmatic, abdominal breathing that keeps a sense of self-regulation, like you were alluding to, Jen. And also, my inner resource is so deeply embedded me, a deep core feeling of unbreakable well-being. It's constantly welling up all day long. So when I'm meeting a particular challenging moment, it's just there as the ground out of which I'm meeting the moment. So I feel this deep core well-being along with an abiding joy that helps me meet difficult moments where I may feel a moment of sadness or a moment of irritability, but they're met with such core well-being and I would say deep curiosity. I'm truly fascinated and interested in the moment and what's the most viable solution that brings a sense of harmony to myself and maybe the person that I'm engaged with. But I'd say the basic is that inner resource, a deep core sense of well being, and just the simplicity of allowing the body to breathe in its natural rhythm that keeps that sense of stability all day long. And taking it with me into sleep. Every night before I go to sleep, as I'm lying in bed, I've said my goodnights. I really do feel that sense of abiding peace and joy and take it with me. And it's the first thing I do in the morning. Before I start moving, I just take a few moments, a few breaths to welcome that sense of well being so that it's accompanying me day and night, I would say.
So, Richard, you just talked about sleep, how you kind of bring that practice into sleep, and I love how you describe yoga nidra as being aware as we move through different states of consciousness, including deep sleep. And this is something that I find really interesting. But at the same time, like, why would one want to be aware the whole time? Because I know that when we go into deep sleep, that's the moment where, like you say, the mind and the body, like the ego, it dissolves, where we're just at one, but we're not aware that we're at one. And what is the I guess benefit to being aware even during that time of deep dreamless sleep?
There is a tendency, isn't there, in sleep to fuse with the dream images and to not understand or to forget that the dreamer is the same one who is the waker. So the one who's aware in the dream is the same one who's aware in the waking life. And so what we're learning to do, if it's interesting, of course, takes curiosity and deep interest. We're learning how to meet, as you were saying, all these different states of consciousness, all through the waking, but also into sleep, so that we are nourishing, you might say, a state of remembrance. Awareness is there when we're sleeping, but the tendency is to forget that we are the one who is aware. So by taking the meditation into sleep, we might say we're learning to break that identification with going asleep, you might say, because most people, it seems to me, are sleepwalking in their waking life. And we're learning to break that hypnotic trance, break the identification and the fusions that create reactivity and suffering. And then for some of us, we're carrying that into dream life as well, where we're breaking that identification. In which case, we could say yoga nidra, the way we're discussing it right now, is preparation one for living life and meeting death. We are able to be present and surf all the different states of consciousness and break the fusion with reactivity and with aversion. Oftentimes we want life to be other than it is. Either we're averse to something that's coming to us, or we're attached and averse to something that's leaving us. We want to cling and hold on to it. But if we can really let go moment to moment, we find a deep peace while we're in the waking. Now we can carry that into the dream life and carry that kind of lucidity that when we're in the dying process and things start being taken away from us, I mean, we get old enough, somebody's going to take our car keys. Then life's going to take our hearing, and then it's going to take our eyesight, and it's going to take our smell and our taste. If we're ready and we're able to meet those moments, we'll continue to realize that isn't a loss per se. We're still there as the one who's been aware our entire lifetime, and now in that moment of meeting that next great adventure, you might say, as the body is completely dissolving. And here we are meeting that moment with grace. So many people don't understand the value of being aware during life, and even more so taking it into the dream world.
Wow.
Actually,
That was so. Go ahead, Jen. I'll let you say something.
I was just going to ask, maybe even for our listeners, because we often talk in our training about the 5 rites of Shiva, of the birth and the maintenance and like death or dissolving. I was hoping that you could maybe speak to that a little bit and how it might present itself, through all the different perceptions as well as the physical body.
Sure. These 5 rights, we could say birth, growth, stability, decay, and death. And everything goes through those 5 rights. Our body does. It was born, it grows, it seems like it stabilizes for a while, and then we're on a long decline and ultimately death. And we can see that as so with a tree, a rock, a mountain. Some go through it more slowly than others, but we can also see it with a thought, an emotion, a feeling, a bodily sensation. The sensation of thought and emotion has a birth. And if we understand the 5 rights, then as it's going through its movement, we can say, oh, look, it's just been born. That means I got a while to hang out with this emotion before it goes through its 5. So if I allow, you might say, if I meet an emotion knowing this, I'm meeting it as it's moving through its different stages. I'm not trying to speed it up and I'm not trying to slow it down. Same thing with the thought, same thing with body sensation, like pain. Pain has birth, it can intensify, and ultimately it will dissolve and decay. If we know it, these 5 rights, then we know everything goes through a change and everything ultimately will pass. And I took my ring on my right hand and inscribed in it, this too shall pass. And it's that understanding that whatever we're experiencing, no matter how intense it is, how disquieting, it too will pass. Can we not fight with it? Can we move with it, get to know it, get to understand it, move with the emotion, try to understand it as a messenger? Like, for instance, anger is just showing me that somehow life is showing up in a way unexpected to me. So I can use it as a messenger to see, okay, life is showing up not the way I expected it. So let me see what life is in this moment. Then the anger drops away because it's served its purpose. Then it goes through its changes very quickly. We don't hold on to it. There are 2 more of those rights, though, forgetting and remembering, where we are primed to forget, aren't we? And we're primed to remember. And I love this understanding for meditators because oftentimes when, especially in the early years, we're meditating and we lapse into a daydream and we come back and we might get upset with ourselves. I'm going to try harder next time to not get caught in a daydream. But if we recognize that forgetting and remembering are part of our daily life, then when I've gone into a daydream and now I'm remembering that I'm in a daydream and I'm starting to remember to come back, to me, that's simply a moment of celebration, I might say. Oh, life just wanted me to forget. Now it's wanting me to remember. And I've found, interestingly and paradoxically, the less I fight with life, the more I'm remembering and not forgetting. So if we're really willing to go along with life, I find most emotions have a very short life, like they were when we were kids. We don't hold on to them. And we have moments of forgetting, but more and more we'll continue to remember this incredible preciousness, one of life that we've been given. Gratitude, so much gratitude for everything around us. I was constantly remembering if I'm eating somebody, how many hands has the food that we're eating passed through from the person who grew the seeds, planted it, cultivated it, nourished it, um, harvested it, brought it to market, brought it to us? If we really think about it, we should be always in moments of gratitude. So I just see these are the kind of movements that life wants us to be in when we're at peace, meeting life on its own terms, not fighting with it. Gratitude, love, kindness, compassion, peace, ease, well-being, they just become the gifts that life offers us.
Wow, there's so much here. And there's like, I have so many more questions, but I think that, yes, certainly you've given us a lot to think about. As always, I love learning and listening to all your teachings, Richard. And I'm sure that our listeners would, want to find other ways to connect with you and to learn from you. So, if you could please let it share with us how people can work with you and learn with you.
Thank you, Dora. Yes, iRest Institute, iRest.org. We're offering, as you were both have been saying, you've partaken in them, trainings, retreats, courses. I love our trainings because people are really learning how not just to bring this into their own life, but how to share it with the people they're with, or if they happen to be in work, they can take it into their workplace. But also the retreats where, gosh, I wish everybody could take a time out on retreat regularly, once or twice a year, to really drop out and tune into their life and nourish that deep inner richness. So yeah, retreats, courses, trainings, individual meetings. We've got so many mentors and trained teachers to help people really meet their life and grow. So iRest.org would be the channel to go to. And I should say for anybody who's listening, we do have a free course. So you can really understand and get involved in it free of charge and see how it fits with your own life.
Thank you
Right,
so
thank
much,
you.
Richard. Thank you so much. We're
Thank you
really
so much.
appreciative.
You're welcome, Jen and Dora. It's sweet to see you both and have some time with you.